Today is Washington Examiner Wednesday, where we like to check in with one of our friends from the Examiner to dive into some of the key issues of the day. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by the business editor at the Examiner, Jay Heflin, joins us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Jay, welcome to the show, sir. It's so good to have you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good to be here.
So in terms of the unemployment provisions, let's go there in terms of the economic benefits. I mean, currently, at least the previous way things were being done was $600 a week in additional unemployment support. Republicans in this new HEALS Act, because that has expired, that is done at the end of this month. In the
Right.
HEALS Act, they want an additional $200 instead of $600. What's going on there, and is it something that the Democrats and Republicans, who are deeply divided on this particular point of unemployment benefits, can actually reach some sort of agreement?
I think that they can reach an agreement because Democrats have actually said $600 was too much. And I talked to 7 people who were unemployed that said, I'm not looking for work because I get this amount of money
Yes.
and I make more money than I do from work. But here's the funny thing is I spoke to them recently, like a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week and a half ago. They are now looking for work and can't get it. So now they're kind of kicking themselves because they said, look, I had this money. Now that it's gone away, they kind of thought they would just get hired again at their next job. And many of these people that I spoke with are restaurant people. These restaurants are opening at a quarter capacity. So they already have their wait staff. They don't need more people because they're not growing. The idea was you were going to start at a quarter for a couple of weeks, go to 50%, 75% full in like 4 weeks. Well, it's been 6 weeks and no one's really expanding that in many places of the country because people are still getting sick. So these workers that thought they're going to have a job now realize they're not going to because the restaurant's not going to hire them. So now they have to look for other sorts of work, which is even harder sometimes because they may not have the experience that's required for that another job.
Again, we're talking with Jay Heflin, who is business editor at the Washington Examiner. Yeah, I think I've seen many instances where people were not going back to work. Like employers are calling them saying, are you coming back? We have the opportunity for you to return to work. And they said, I'm actually making more on unemployment benefits. Eventually I'll come back, but I'm going to wait until this is up, which is exactly what Republicans who were opposed to the idea of $600 a week were saying would happen. And then it is interesting, as you're pointing out, Jay, that we're at a point where some of these people are like, okay, I'm ready to go back to work, especially because the $600 is gone. But now the job that I had before, which I could have gone back to previously but decided not to, is gone. So in that regard, I mean, does that bolster Democrats' case to include more than $200 in this relief package? Or is it something where Republicans can say you might end up just exacerbating this particular problem and discouraging work as it already happened?
I think what I've heard some Democrats say, and I won't say names because I don't want to pin it on them,
Sure.
but there is an openness to lowering the $600 payment as long as there's other things in the bill that will allow these people to have money, i.e. the $1,200 stimulus check that's going out. And so I think there, from what I've been told, there is a willingness on the Democrats' part to actually lower the $600 payment. To 200, I'm not sure, but there probably is some sort of give there, maybe on both sides, that you might see 450. There's been some talk of 70% of the enhanced payment, which would be 450. Then plus that would be on top of the state aid. So if you make like 380 on state aid, you'd make like $700-800 a month. Is that enough for some people to like make more? Yes, but other people, no, they would be making less.
Yeah.
But I think that the biggest issue is that they just basically have to figure this out quickly and get it into the pipeline so people can get this relief. Because as we said, this stuff ran out last week or this week, and these people are going to be done.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you mentioned that I also wanted to bring up is the $1,200 in so-called stimulus payments. That is in this package, renewing or putting out another batch of stimulus checks.
It's in the Senate and the House, I believe, but different. I forget what the cutoffs are. I think it's 75,000 if you make 75,000 less in the House. I forget if the Senate is 45 or 75. So I forget what the details are on that.
Sure. Any other key provisions in this bill or anything that maybe it doesn't address? I know, for example, that you've been reporting, Jay, about time running out for Congress to extend this eviction moratorium that was also put
Yeah.
in place.
Yeah, there's a perfect storm brewing there because basically um, this eviction notice was for buildings that had federal assistance. So if your building has federal assistance, you couldn't do you could not evict someone until July 25th. And so many of these people, and I've talked to people within the in the apartment world, the $600 payment that just ran out was a big reason why people weren't evicted. They actually could pay their rent, is because of that payment. Well, that payment is now gone. So a lot of people are thinking that August might be okay because people save the money and will make August rent. But what about September?
Mm.
If there's nothing that happens with legislation for some sort of unemployment assistance, these people will not have enough money for their rent and will go through the eviction process. Now, saying that, it's not as if you don't have the rent on the first of the month and on the second you are kicked out. It doesn't work like that. There'll be a 30-day notice, and then even after that, you have to go through a court procedure, and that could take a while. So I've talked to people that said it can be anywhere from 2 to 6 months that a person wouldn't that a person would not be evicted until 2 to 6 months later
Right.
after not making rent. So it isn't something that could be a huge problem, but then again, you never know. Um, would the court systems be quicker in other parts of the country and less so in other parts? So you just don't know. But it's just something. Why do we want to tangle with this? Why don't we get the relief out there so these people can stay in their homes?
Once again, Jay Heflin, our guest from the Washington Examiner, where he's business editor. So, is there anything that we should be keeping in mind and observing in terms of this legislation, the HEALS Act moving forward, a paycheck protection program, any other components, or maybe some political dynamics that may be at play, Jay?
Well, the paycheck protection program is something that you now can take. Um, Used to, businesses had two choices. You can take the employee retention credit or the protection loan. You now can take both, and so under the Senate bill. So that's actually a good thing because basically people needed both. One thing with the paycheck protection program that they did is that it used to be that you had to take, I believe it was 75% of the money had to go to payroll for that loan to be forgiven. Well, in New York City, uh, rent is way more expensive than payroll, and so you put 75% of that loan money to payroll for it to be forgiven. You don't have money for rent,
Right.
and so your business is gone, but you're paying employees that no longer have a place to work. And so I think that that's something that they need to look at to make sure that it's built so it works for all of the companies. I mean, in high rent areas and low rent areas, because if not, it's useless. And so far, it's gotten good feedback to something because that's all they had.
Right.
But there have been some arguments saying it was too tough to figure out. I needed a lawyer to actually help me with it, so I had to pay a lawyer X to get Y money back, and so it was considered like a lost loser. But I think those are the things that need to be looked at, and I also think the biggest thing is the unemployment, the enhanced unemployment payment. That'll be a big determination. If there's an agreement on that, chances are this bill will go through.
And finally, on this topic, and then I want to shift to the Federal Reserve and what's going on there with their crisis lending program. In cut four, we have Mitch McConnell this week during his speech on the Senate floor announcing the HEALS Act, talking a little bit about the political dynamics and urging Democrats to come aboard.
Now, we need our Democratic colleagues to reprise their part as well. They need to put aside the partisan stonewalling we saw on police reform, rediscover the spirit of urgency that got the CARES Act across the finish line, and quickly join us around the negotiating table. It will take bipartisan cooperation to make the HEALS Act into law for the American people. The Senate will not waste time with pointless partisanship. There's a reason why even Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer themselves have publicly downplayed the multi-trillion-dollar socialist manifesto they published some weeks back and have suggested the real serious discussion would begin when Republicans released
our proposal. So that's Senator Mitch McConnell laying out the politics from his viewpoint. How do you assess getting this bill, the HEALS Act, to the finish line?
Well, McConnell has called this a starting point, and so this is his first out. Like, this is what I want to do. What do you want to do? He has welcomed people to come in and say, look, let's change this, let's change that. So I think you're going to see a lot of changes in this bill. And then the House bill, I believe only one Republican voted for it, if I remember correctly. The Senate is definitely going to need more than that, because I believe they need 60 to get this bill passed. And if that's required, this bill will probably be the compromise package that will then go to the House, hopefully pass, and then move on. So basically, we will probably see a lot of changes in this bill. I mean, McConnell's welcoming it. He called it a starting point, not an end point. And so we will probably see a lot of changes in this bill as time goes on. And I've been hearing 2 weeks, and these guys want to be out. They want this bill done before they leave for the August break, when the Senate, which I believe is in 2 weeks. So we might be seeing a lot of changes in this bill over the next couple of weeks as negotiations continue.
You just watched a clip from Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel today. You want to catch our live show. And I love your support.
I got Jimmy at the Crossroads, making sense out of no sense. Yeah.
Awesome.